Alright guys, alright. I've seen a few other YouTubers do this, and I thought about doing it for a while now, but I almost just used to watch Inside Star Citizen because I couldn't wait. But let's watch it together. This one's obviously going to be about Siege of Orison. I do have some thoughts on it. I generally enjoyed it. I believe my character was standing on the edge of the big tower, threatening to jump because Siege was over. All jokes aside. But like I say, yeah, at the end of the day, I did enjoy it. I really, really enjoyed it. Yeah, there were some problems with the AI and stuff like that. But let's see what they have to say. And then we'll talk about what we've learned and my thoughts on the situation. And if you're wondering why I sound like I've just woken up, it's because I just have. 10:30 in the morning, and I'm not afraid to admit it. Alright, let's get the caffeine in me and let's go. Inside Star Citizen. Occupational location.
Star Citizen is a globally distributed project with 5 studios across 4 countries and 2 continents.
I just want to say, Jared is looking really, really good. The UK is definitely agreeing with Jared. He seems to have lost a lot of weight. He seems healthier, a little bit, looks even a little bit younger. Not so stressed. He's looking really good.
People from all over the world have come to Cloud Imperium to help make those tandem games we're creating all that they can be. But the Persistent Universe and Squadron 42, with some minor exceptions for Xi'an and Banu, have been a mostly English affair so far. That single language focus is not uncommon during the development of any project. But as we approach the next major milestones for Star Citizen and Squadron 42, it's become time to begin the process of expanding our language support to match those of our players and communities around the globe. With that in mind, we'd like to take this episode of Inside Star Citizen and introduce you to one of the newest teams being built here. Now, currently less than 6 months old, let's meet some of the folks working to bring localization support to Star Citizen and Squadron 42.
I'm Yagoda. I am the localization lead at CH.
Soy Brice Fajardo, soy especialista en control de calidad de localización y vengo de España.
I'm Jonathan Lowndes, and I am the localization and English dialogue pipeline producer.
Hola, mi nombre es María Laura Palestrini, soy especialista en localización para español en CIG.
Donc, je m'appelle Yannick Simon-Klein et je suis le spécialiste localisation à CIG à Francfort.
안녕하세요. 한국어 로컬라이즈.
I'm guessing he's the German one. Just putting that out there. Presuming he's German. And I'm presuming I'm presuming she's Chinese.
스페셜리스트 최유진이라고 합니다.
It doesn't seem like a big thing. But them putting out different languages and stuff like that, it'll stop CIG from getting certain labels thrown at them. So it's a little bit of cutto. But also, it's also good for the player bases. You know, they now have people that are speaking Spanish, doing translations and stuff for the characters and stuff like that. It just means that more people will be able to play the game as well. And like I say, it shows the project as when Squadron 42 comes out, will be a finished, polished thing. So that's kind of cool.
Localization.
I know some people are going to sit there and go, oh my god, they're wasting all their time doing all these different languages. No, it just means it's a finished, polished project. And to be honest, there's certain standards in gaming, and having different languages is one of them.
It's much more than just translation.
We have the full control of the tone we want to give to the game.
The localization specialists want to break the language barrier.
We're really, really trying to give players the best experience we can.
And understanding how important it is to take games to other audiences.
We've started thinking about localization very early at CAG.
Well, usually localization is one of the last steps in game development.
In this particular situation, we wanted to make sure we have aligned everything from
legal text, marketing, dialogue, scripts for dubbing, anything that has to do with UI, descriptions.
We want to make sure that everyone can enjoy the game, regardless of wherever they are in the world.
Normally what I do,
So that's one thing that they sort of touched on there. They hinted at it a little bit. Normally this is towards the end of game development. That's actually quite true. Normally the last very few pipelines that you do in game development is languages. You got all the acting done, you've got all the cinematics done, you got all the cutscenes, all your game engines, all everything done. One of the last things you'll do is normally different languages. I don't think this is the case with CIG. I think they are towards the end or getting towards the end. I think they're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, but I don't think this is like a thing where like Squadron 42 is going to come out in the next month or so. This is probably going to take them some time, and I know I was wrong about Squadron 42 last time. I thought it was going to come out when they said it was going to come out for the beta. Look, realistically, we could probably see it I'd say mid to late next year. I'd say we've probably got about 12 months left on Squadron 42 before it's finished. With everything that they're doing at the moment. Like, they just went through and did a full play test with all the cutscenes and everything working, and was able to test it all in one series and one complete section without having to worry about missing parts. That in itself is amazing.
Today basis is adapt to the text type I have to deal with pertaining translation.
We also have to adapt that whatever is not translatable in words is actually understandable anyway.
It's about experience, right? It's about culture.
I found out from the Korean community they actually made this Korean patch for Star Citizen, and I guess that made me realize the users are actually willing to play games in their own language if they could. That actually motivates me a lot.
There are a lot of
No, really? Do people want to listen in their own language? Who would have thought?
Conversations with other departments to make this as immersive as possible.
As LQA specialist, I'm in charge to, once we have those translations implemented in the game, to ensure that those translations are both working correctly and they are correct in the context.
We use a tool called Star Words, in which narrative inputs their English text, and after they approve it, it gets sent to us via the same tool, during which process we export it out into our translation tool. Then we translate it, proofread it, edit it, and do any necessary corrections as needed, and then export it back into Star Wars, and from Star Wars into the game.
Visually, you can see the work that an art team or a cinematics team do, and you can go, yeah, I can see the flair there. But it's not until you speak a lot of these languages, you understand that maybe there's an Easter egg, maybe the wording is lifted from a Han Solo monologue or something, and then you're like, oh my god, you squeezed that in and it fits. That's the coolest thing I've ever seen.
We have to be.
He is totally geeking out about this, which is actually, for me, that's actually really interesting, because presumably these guys have gone through and they've read all the dialogue for the show and for the game. So for him to be this excited and this giddy over things that he's heard in the game, they've obviously done an amazing job. So that is really reassuring. I thought this was about Siege of Orison though, so I'm a little bit disappointed. I was waiting to see what they were talking about Siege.
Be very careful.
Maybe that's tomorrow's show I was thinking of.
To adapt the product to there is in a format and appropriate form for each locale.
To be fair, I think a lot of Korean people are fairly familiar with Western culture, so we use a lot of English words, sometimes as a meme, sometimes that's just as professional terms.
A word that is very, very common, and it's in European Spanish people, to grab something is ser coger, which in Latin America, in most countries in Latin America, it means to have intercourse. So that's a really funny difference that we laugh about all the time.
As a producer, I have my eyes 12, 18, 20 months down the line at any given point, because I live in spreadsheets and I have to try and plan everyone's schedules out all the way into the future. So having recently been spending a lot of time in that, there's some stuff in there that I'm not allowed to talk about, but I can't wait until everyone gets to see it.
We are all very passionate about the projects, both Squadron 42 and Star Citizen, and we want to make sure that the translations provided are the best possible. We know that our community is very engaged, and we know there have been other translation endeavors for Star Citizen as well. But we try to engage every single user, not only the people who have played the game for a considerable duration of time. So bear with us, not every translation will be as you think it could be. We will try to make improvements as much as possible, and we hope that you're going to like it.
The Siege of Orison was the Persistent Universe's biggest and most ambitious dynamic event yet, pushing at the seams of AI, server performance, FPS systems, and more. And while it recently returned to players in last week's Pirate Week celebration, we wanted to check in with the team and discuss some of the fixes and adjustments that went into this second wave of events, and the advancements to all of Star Citizen that came from this technology-stressing event.
We were watching the same stream at the same time, and I see Elliot
giving him little hints,
desperate to give away the secret.
I was just very excited.
And he's getting more and more obvious. And I'm like, Elliot, maybe, to a point where I can't write what I want to say in the chat anymore, so I'm texting him.
Stop.
Just stop. You are going to give it away. And ultimately he did. The whole point of Siege was to push FPS and healing gameplay, right? Like, and looting and all that. Like, been in the game for several releases, some of it, and like it wasn't being used to its fullest extent. And we thought, well, what better way to use that and actually show players that they, the consequences of being downed.
The cool thing about Siege is, when we have a big event like this, it gets us a lot of sort of improvements to the game. Because of Siege, there was some sort of more of a focus on looking at some of the back-end type performance, and they found issues, and that's unlocked 100-player servers for people. It helped to push towards it. Over the course of it, like already running, me and Luke was watching streams, and we was having constant conversations as to ways we could improve this mission. Not only for future iterations on it, but also just in the quick patches we can get out. We fixed the bug where when you completed an objective, you wasn't instantly paid. You should have been instantly paid, but instead what was happening was it wasn't being given instantly, but it was collecting, so when the mission ended, it awarded it all at once.
We fixed a number of flow breaking issues as well, like where bosses would just fall through the floor and be unreachable.
We added an objective, a secondary objective for disabling the anti-air and give a reward for it. So, players knew that it was something you could do, but also it isn't the main focus.
We've taken steps to prevent griefing around that first area that you get off of a shuttle. We now spawn Crusader security that kind of take up guard posts at that shuttle stop. We hope that's enough to kind of ward off the griefers.
So just on the griefing situation, there was only really one time, and I ran Siege like for days when it was out. Like there was one time that I did like Siege like 5 times in one day. And there was only one time where I had some guy who actually went through and actually griefed me. And he was taken care of very quickly by the AI turrets and by the anti-air turrets and by the security forces. And he didn't even kill me. It was the NPCs, the Ninetales NPCs that actually finished me off. As for the bosses and stuff like that, there was once that I had it where the boss didn't spawn, he glitched. And we couldn't find him. And like I said, we ran it several times. So it was really, really good. Look, yeah, the AI was still very derpy, very slow to respond sometimes and stuff like that. God help us when they're actually fast, because when they were responding, they were brutal.
We changed how the ending kind of happened. Before it was very like you got an audio line saying please leave, and then that kind of reoccurred. We also added this to the HUD so players can see actively a please leave. When any player leaves the area, the mission will complete for them and they'll get all their extra rewards that were required. One thing we noticed was players were server hopping when the event had finished to try getting another event that had just started, and because of that they wasn't getting all the rewards from the mission because of that bug I previously explained as well. We are working on dialogue improvements.
Near us out of the sky, I've got heavy hits locking down
Now
each
arriving
platforms.
at Solanki platform.
You don't stand a chance.
As we noticed, a few issues and ways we could tighten up some of the dialogue and audio lines. Working on extra things to do in the mission, so even if people do arrive late, they'll have something to do. And many other things like that, but I don't want to go too much into it.
Thanks to everyone who's participated in Siege of Horizon. It's been really fun watching you guys and hearing your feedback on playing the event.
So what did we learn this week? Well, we learned...
Right, so like I said, with Siege, I generally had a really good time. I found myself waiting for the next event to happen. There was, like I said, once I did it for 4 or 5 times in a row. I actually had a really good time. Like I said, I think I was going to do a skip when my character was standing on a ledge because Siege was over. But I was going to say, but at the end of the day, yeah, it's the only issues I really noticed during it was the AI being a bit derpy. Now, that should fix with obviously things like server meshing and stuff like that. Once they get those server latencies down a little bit, or if they get that to a more manageable size, then obviously the AI should be a lot more responsive. But God help us when that happens, because when they were responsive, holy dooly, they were bad. There was a couple of times where they killed me. So, yeah, at the end of the day, I had a really good time with Siege, and I think they did a really good job on it. Look, sure, I would like there to be more areas to clear. Maybe they could put more objectives in. Like, for example, maybe they could go through and maybe you make it so there's hostages or something that you could rescue. That'd be something that'd be interesting. Maybe because there's this huge tower and it's roof, upper floor, ground. It's but this tower's 30 stories high. So maybe add a few more floors in there where you can go through and clear. Maybe in one of them put hostages or something like that would be cool. Just stuff like that. Like I said, there is that's stopping the hack addition that you can do, and there's also the anti-aircraft defenses that you can do. There's a few missions in there that you could do, but there's certainly more things that they could add. But it really does sort of make me wonder how Theatres of War was going to be and how good it was going to be. Because at the end of the day, I really and thoroughly enjoyed Siege. Like I said, not perfect, but certainly not the worst thing they've ever done.
Learned that the localization team is hard at work reinterpreting Squadron 42 for several languages and cultures around the world. That turning an eye to Star Citizen will begin with external web resources before they dive into the depths of the Stanton system, and that the Siege of Horizon wasn't just a fun event for our players, it pushed the underlying technologies in ways that have improved experiences for every aspect of life in the persistent universe. Now remember that our CitizenCon livestream will be this October 8th at 8 a.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. UTC, and it's really like an entire season of ISC all crammed into a single quarter day. There's going to be some cool stuff. For Inside...
They say quarter of a day. 6 hours, maybe? 6-hour event?
Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. We'll see you all here next week.
Alright, guys. Like I said, yeah, I actually really enjoyed Siege. I'm kind of missing it, actually, to be honest. Like I said, there's definitely things they can add, like, for example, hostages. Maybe you obviously eliminate the bad guys and then you have to escort them out. Although, I don't know if the AI is capable of that at the moment because, like I say, it's a bit derpy at times. But definitely when they get server meshing and stuff happening, that could obviously happen. But also, like I say, I'm looking forward to other things like this happening in other areas. You know, like, for example, you know, they can add it to Area 18 inside one of the buildings. Maybe do like a hostage situation or a terrorist situation in there. You know, maybe in Hurston they can go through and free some workers. You know, like I say, it really does depend on the situation and what they want to do. But it definitely is interesting that they can do this. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in other areas. Maybe Microtech, they could go through and do sort of like a data raid where, like, Xenothreat or Nine Tails is taking out data and you have to go and stop them in time or something like that. But guys, let me know what your thoughts are in that comment section below. Obviously, at the end of the day, if this video has been helpful, please smack that like button. If you're new to the channel, welcome and subscribe. Apart from that, guys, I will see you in the next demonetized video of YouTube. But yeah, let me know if you like this sort of stuff. Because like I say, I do have a game modding background. I've been doing it since I was like 20. I'm older, I'm going to say, since that. So I have been doing modding for a while now, and I do have some sort of minor background when it comes to sort of like modding and a little bit of design and stuff like that. Apart from that, guys, have a great night, enjoy yourself, let me know what your thoughts are, and we'll see you in the comment section below. Have a good night.